Now be honest, if you're a Christian, how do you see Jesus? Do you see him more as the Son of God who went around performing all kinds of miracles? Or do you see him more as a sage who went around uttering many wise sayings? Well, Jesus, he was both, of course, but modern Christianity tends to focus solely upon this side of Christ while all but ignoring this side. In this video, I want us to look together at Matthew 11:19, where Jesus said, "Wisdom is proved right by her deeds." Now, even if you're not a believer and you just think of Christ as an interesting historical figure, stick with me to the end of this video, because how Jesus defined wisdom, well, it's in complete contrast to the wisdom of our age. Now, last month I did a video on Matthew 7:15 to 20. And I talked about two wise sayings of Christ. The one was, beware of wolves. Beware of wolves in sheep's clothing. And the other one was essentially, judge a tree by its fruit. And my apologies, I've discovered that a whiteboard doesn't work that well in sub-zero temperatures. But anyway, with this one here, beware of wolves in sheep's clothing, Jesus was referring to those of his own day who would use religious piety as a disguise, use virtue as a form of camouflage in order to prey upon others. And the form that it would take today wouldn't be just a preacher, but it can also be a social activist, an environmentalist. Nothing is too sacred for these people to twist and distort for their own advantage. And what I often find is with these people is that they'll use a facade, a smokescreen of wisdom. They will use big fancy sounding words, virtuous sounding rhetoric, feel good cliches, fine sounding arguments. They'll take a grain of truth and present it as though it's an entire crop. But in the end, what is their fruit? If their fruit is bad, then you know the tree itself is bad and that you're probably looking at a wolf. And in a similar way, that's what Jesus was meaning in Matthew 11:19 when he said, wisdom is proved right by her deeds or by her fruit. The background story to that saying is that Jesus had been talking about John the Baptist, how John the Baptist had been sent by God ahead of Jesus to prepare people's hearts and minds. And how because of, well, John's appearance and his ascetic lifestyle, he wore clothes made out of camel's hair and ate locusts and honey. Because of those things, the cultured, the sophisticated, the educated religious establishment, they brushed John and his message aside, claiming that he was nothing more than a crazed wild man who was demon-possessed. They couldn't, however, level the same accusations against Jesus, since Jesus ate normal food and dressed just like everyone else. Nevertheless, because Jesus did not fast according to their customs and traditions, and because Jesus went to dinner parties hosted by some, well, let's face it, some pretty shady characters of Jesus' day, who nevertheless wanted to honestly hear what he had to say, because Jesus accepted their invitations and went and ate and drank with them. Well, the religious establishment, they then accused Jesus of being nothing more than a drunk and a glutton. And so Jesus summed everything up by saying wisdom is proved right by her deeds, meaning that in the end, time would tell. Time would tell whose wisdom was right. Was it the religious establishments or Christ's? Now, hopefully it's becoming self-apparent that wisdom, according to Jesus, was a moral pursuit rather than an intellectual one. That wisdom is intertwined with our character. Because wisdom requires humility. The humility to admit when we're wrong, the humility to want to learn from others. Everything boils down to character. It's our behavior. It's how we conduct ourselves. That's a reflection of either wisdom or foolishness. And that's why I find what Christ's half-brother James said was very instructive in James 3:13 to 18. In verse 13, he said, "Who is wise and understanding among you? Let them show it by their good deeds, by deeds done in humility that come from wisdom." And he goes on in the next few verses to list off what is true wisdom and what is fake wisdom or false wisdom. With true wisdom, the characteristics are humility, mercy, sincerity, impartiality, and especially peace-loving. But fake wisdom, false wisdom, what you'll find is bitter envy, selfish ambition, disorder and chaos, and every base instinct of our human nature. So to boil it all down, true wisdom seeks peace. It brings order, whereas fake wisdom brings chaos. It sets people against each other. So wisdom is proved right by her deeds. With that, how does the wisdom of our age stack up against Christ? But before we look at that, if you found value in this video, please do give it a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. The wisdom of our age. We hear endless pious talk, don't we, about love, tolerance, and acceptance. But do we actually see it practice? Do we see its fruit? Do we see its deeds? Do we see a culture that is at peace with itself, that could be defined by humility, forgiveness, gratitude, mercy? Or do we see a culture that is at war with itself, that is increasingly becoming tribal, splintering off into all kinds of different warring factions? If something from someone's past that isn't good is exposed, does the wisdom of our age say, offer mercy, offer them forgiveness, offer them redemption, give them a second chance? Or does the wisdom of our age say, cancel that person and destroy them? Wisdom is proved right by her deeds. Not Jesus. He was a pretty smart guy. Please do share this video with family and friends. In the video that I previously mentioned about wolves in sheep's clothing, the end card is just over there. Thanks so much. I hope to see all of you next Thursday. Bye for now, and God bless.